What's going on there, guys? Good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Member drawing being held later today, this afternoon. It's about noon, straight up noon here along the West Coast. Latest activity on the Earthquake 3D globe, 2.6 coming in over around the Azores out here across the Atlantic. We did see some movement overnight off the coast of the Canada area, north of the Cascadia subduction zone here, the northern end, right along the plate boundary of the Pacific and the North American plate. 4.4 coming in just off of the Queen Charlotte Sound. It was about 5 o'clock this morning or so. Still seeing some elevated activity across Alaska, of course, with that active volcano kicking up. Got to watch these other volcanoes as well along the Aleutian Trench. This area right here seen a handful of earthquakes yesterday, including a 5.0, and just upstream here a little bit where that active volcano is spewing up some ash. Seen a little bit of swarming going on there yesterday. Today, another 4.7 here, further west along the Aleutian Trench. Came in about 9 o'clock this morning or so. So things ramping up slightly across the northern edge, and it seems as though when the northern edge kicks up, that's when we need to watch regions across the Kuril-Kamchatka. And that's where we've seen a couple earthquakes here early this morning, 4.6 and a 4.7 are right smack dab in the zone of where I believe we have enough strain built up here for a mega quake. This is a major subduction zone area capable of producing some very large earthquakes. The accumulated slip rate, there we go. I was going to say accumulated rip current, but we're not talking about seas out here. We're talking about the subduction zone across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. This area is backed up by the Pacific plate moving to the northwest, the North American plate moving firmly to the south here in this area, and then that's backed up by the Eurasia plate. So this whole area is a dynamically set up zone for some high slip rate. And it's been a little while since we've seen any major large-scale movement here across the Kuril-Kamchatka, so watch that pretty closely. A couple fours there, just letting us know that I'm sure it's getting close. 5.1 in Japan, that earthquake coming in just a couple hours or so ago, 36 kilometers deep. We were watching for some movement here across the western edge of the Filipino plate. It looks like that has come to pass, not quite as large as it could have been. There's definitely some movement across the Mariana Trench and some deeper activity across the Izu Trench up here over the last couple days. So, all right, Indonesia Islands area, one from yesterday, one from today. Latest, a 4.5, 10 kilometers deep here, just outside of New Guinea, and back over here across the Tonga region. Doesn't look like we've seen anything else stirring up here throughout the afternoon or morning time period. So it looks as though the main focus is out here across the northwestern edge here of the Pacific plate and adjacent plates here. That's where all the activity seems to be wanting to push off to today. Got to remember the general plate movement here is technically in that area. So we'll watch that for some further movement potentially. Throughout the Mediterranean, this is the EMSC model here showing some of the activity. Although, there's quite a few 2s and 3s out there, very typical across all these plate boundaries. Not seeing anything major kicking up here, though, as far as any large-scale movement goes. Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. And out here into the South America area, looks like they had a 5.2. This earthquake here just after midnight, 116 kilometers deep. Just prior to that, we've seen some deeper movement quakes here underneath the San Antonio de los Cobres, Argentina area, 180 kilometers deep into the Peru-Chile Trench. So activity stirring up there as well. Just to clarify about what I did here on the Earthquake 3D globe, I removed the worldwide data for the EMSC. The reason why I did that is because they've been putting out some false large earthquakes out here on the globe and then failing to remove them from their data system. So I just canceled that. I still include EMSC, but just for the European area and the Mediterranean region, and it looks like they do cover some of the Atlantic as well. So that's what these earthquakes are coming from, the EMSC. But the rest of the globe out here is going to be all USGS data until the EMSC gets their system fixed. I'm just going to keep them off to the side for now. We can always check on their site if need be. All right, let's see what's going on here across the west. Well, let's start in Hawaii. Right, that's been kind of an active zone here of earthquake activity. Looks like we did see some further movement this morning. Quite a good swarm of activity. 75 earthquakes within the last 24 hours, but there's definitely been a lot more in the last couple days here. Let's see if we got any newer information here on the volcano, Kilauea Volcano. Daily update. Here's the status report. Daily update. We'll check this out. The volcano is currently not erupting. The Kilauea summit is currently exhibiting signs of elevated unrest, but no unusual activity has been noted across the rift zones for now. Excuse me. Over the past week, looks like rates of seismicity increased with 467 earthquakes over the last week of magnitude 3.2 and smaller. Goodness. Yeah, continuing to watch this here, folks. I believe this thing is getting ready to gear up and jump back into the eruptive phase with this earthquake swarming and the recent tilt meters showing inflation here down around where we would normally see some magma on the move. I would say this thing kicks up here rather soon. We'll continue to watch that though. And I'm talking about Kilauea Volcano. Mauna Loa 2.0, 35 kilometers deep, well underneath this area. We're not seeing any type of earthquake swarming going on there for now. All right, West Coast. Oregon, Washington, mainly smaller microquakes there across the area. West Coast area, roughly about the same, although we did have, looks like a couple threes out there today. A little 3.0 up here near Prattville. Now that's right underneath the Lake Almanor area, not Prattville, but this earthquake activity is. 3.0, we've been watching a swarm of activity up here on a newly discovered fault system here, recently discovered underneath the Lake Almanor area. And it might have something to do with the lake level. That's what I'm thinking. But continuing to watch that area. 3.0 in the Bay Area. This is off of the northern edge of the Calaveras fault system. Southern California, nothing above 2.5. Looks like for the most part, generally small microquake activity out here across the region of Southern California today. Getting a little bit more activity here across the, just on the Pacific side of the plate boundary. Been watching that here. When we see activity stir up here just off the San Andreas Fault, and, you know, within a linear fashion, or maybe within a certain point here, that might be a sign of something about ready to pop on the San Andreas Fault. Of course, this thing's long overdue. The plate stress out here is incredibly high. In fact, high enough to produce an 8.1 is what the geologists are stating. 8.1 magnitude out here would be quite devastating, and would definitely not make for a good week here in Southern California. So just kind of watching that. A little separate swarm here north of the Coachella area. Again, that's just off the plate boundary here. There's a couple other segments of faults that kind of run off of the San Andreas Fault here. But when that happens, like I say, that means the stress is quite high in this area. So we'll continue to watch that. Looks like this swarm here kicked off a bunch of ones here earlier this morning, it looks like. And then a little separate swarm down here as well. So that's what I'm saying. Watch this area. I do have a seismograph station down there. Well, I forgot to add the hot caves onto the list here, but I'll take care of that. Hot Caves, Hawaii. There's one little earthquake, Barrett, California. This would probably be the station to watch. It's about the closest to this area. Positioned roughly somewhere around here, in between the Elsinore Fault here and the San Jacinto Fault Zone. So it's hard to acquire some of these stations along the plate boundary itself here in this segment of the San Andreas Fault. So I'm continue to try, but for whatever reason, they just can't get access for some reason. All right, Yellowstone National Park, a little swarming up here. Well, maybe a handful of earthquakes around the Hebgen Lake Estates. A couple smaller ones, but I did check this out earlier this morning, and it doesn't look like we got anything major going on. Again, just a very small handful of very small microquakes. Aside from that, not a whole lot of activity there across that super volcano. Let's go back over here across the states, Texas area, out in the oil fields, western Oklahoma, about the same. Seen a handful of quakes across the New Madrid seismic zone, and a little bit of seismic activity here across North Carolina, just outside the Greensboro area. McLeansville looks like a 2.3 and a 2.2 within minutes of each other. Someone was asking me here during the live stream yesterday if there was any activity out there in that region, and it looks like there is definitely some activity stirring up, although these are the ones that occurred late. I'm not so sure about the a different one that someone was mentioning. Stand by here for a second. Let me see if I can find a station out there around the North Carolina region. So technically it'd be right up here, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of local seismograph stations. Maybe this one right here. Let's see what we got. This one's pretty quiet for now. It should pick it up if there's decent sized earthquakes out here, even some minor ones. That's only a distance of well, from the earthquake activity, maybe it looks like about 30 miles or so. But technically these seismograph stations within the vicinity of this earthquake activity should pick it up, and I'm just not seeing it right now far as the recent data goes. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that. That area does see some swarming on occasion. For now, definitely watch this area around the Pacific Plate. And, things have calmed down for now along the California area. Looks like the last earthquake within this region was a 0.7 at about 8:30 this morning. So it's been a couple hours, but still, watch that for some movement there with that seismic elevated activity. And far as, let's see, let's go back over here. Caribbean Plate, looks like a 3.8 up here around the Puerto Rico Trench recently. A little bit of activity across the Middle America Trench, but nothing major going on there for now. All right, space weather activity, looking at a newer sunspot here, 3405, is making its presence known across the eastern limb here, just coming around the bend. It does show a little bit of complex structure here within this core, so we'll continue to watch this. This sunspot currently facing us will make for a beautiful target if you have a solar telescope, easily visible, but notice the separation here. There's not a whole lot of complexity within this sunspot core, so it's not going to be very dynamic in terms of producing any major flares. We are getting a little bit of growth down here within this sunspot. We'll continue to watch that. Right now, just kind of looks like it's in its growing stage, but we'll pay attention to these newer regions that are coming around the bend. It looks like they could kick up here with some elevated flare activity. 90% chance for a C flare, M flare at 15, X flare around 1% for now. It's all subject to change depending on rapid growth from these sunspots. Aurora forecast. Not a whole lot in the forecast, but it looks like we are seeing a little bit of slight auroras up at the polar regions. Or, let's see what we got down on the South Pole. Yeah, both of them. Looks like a little bit of slight enhancement across the polar regions there. Nothing big time, just some minor activity. Let's see, anything else going on here? Let's check out the weather forecast here. Day 1 outlook. I'm in a little slight chance of thunderstorm activity out here again today. We may see some. Got some clouds floating around once again. I did have a little thunderstorm blow through here yesterday just outside of Chico, and I know they got some bigger ones up around Redding and the Coast Range over here across Northern California. So we'll watch that today. But as far as severe weather threat goes, most of this is going to be at the extreme east coast over here. Talking about around Richmond, Virginia, it looks like, Virginia Beach. And potentially stretching down into the Florida area as well. But overall, threat today is a very minimal severe weather risk day. There is a 2% chance, though, tornado probability out here, so just pay attention and listen to your weather radio. Current, what's this, day 2? Day 2 convective. I wonder if, hold on a second here. Did these guys not update their map? Well, looks like they did. Hold on a second here. August 15th. Okay. Yeah, that looks like that's for tomorrow. Some activity up around the Minnesota area. Is that right? Sometimes it's hard to tell with these guys. The map doesn't really move much out here in the four corners. You notice that? I was like looking at these and I was like, man, this looks the same as it did yesterday, but it looks like there may be a setup, a pattern out here that brings enhanced chances for some thunderstorms out here across the west coast. That looks almost identical to yesterday. All right, but as far as thunderstorm activity goes here, there it is. That's going to be the map here today, and then later this evening it looks like things will diminish out here along the west coast, but remain active out there across the eastern portion of the country. Of course, let's check out the numerical model. Kind of curious about this hurricane that's going to be approaching the Southern California area here in a few days. It is supposed to bring some cooler weather. That looks pretty close there. Staying pretty consistent with its path, traveling up off the Baja California coast. Right now, looks like that's going to spare the region, only getting a slight glancing hit. But this is going to bring some rainfall and an unusual pattern here across the California area. I don't recall the last time we've seen something like this. Now, I'm not for sure how much moisture we're going to get from this hurricane, but even as it disintegrates here into the cooler waters of the Pacific, there may be enough to be stirred up across the west coast for thunderstorm activity, at least according to the map here. And we'll keep an eye on that. Look at that. Looks like it already wants to pull off a whole bunch of moisture from that hurricane into Southern California. That's some impressive rainfalls there, rainfall rates. But we'll watch this as time goes on. This is forecasted for, looks like around the 20th of August, which is really not a long-range model. That's only in 5 days. So we'll continue to check this on every update and see how this thing plays out. If for some reason this does decide to go a little bit further north, I may venture down into Southern California to document and record this activity, because it's quite rare to see a hurricane of somewhat this strength coming into the Southern California area. But we'll continue to watch that as time gets closer. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. Remember, what time did I say yesterday that we were doing the update? 2 o'clock, right? I believe it's going to be 2 o'clock. I still got to do a couple things here before I get everything set up. So I may push that back till 3 o'clock, 1 hour. That's not bad. So 1 hour. So we'll do the member drawing here at 3 o'clock. So if you're not in, jump in so you can win. Have a chance to win a $50 Visa MasterCard or an Earthmaster t-shirt. We're ordering from our new store now, so it shouldn't take as long, and it should be hopefully better quality. Or I think it's a 9-piece geology kit. So jump in on the member drawing here. We'll be doing that live. That way the folks can see it's legit. I'm just not picking out somebody's name that I want to win. It's a legit drawing. live, probably along with Missy Mimi's too. So in person, all of us in person here. So tune in at 3 o'clock Western time, California time. That'd be 6 o'clock Eastern time. So that's not that big of a deal as far as the lateness goes. We'll see you guys back here in a couple hours on a separate live stream for the drawing. Take care, folks.